Now call the meeting of Corbin County Board of Commissioners to order. Please rise for a moment of silence, prayer, and a pledge of allegiance. God of mercy, in your hands is the earth and all that is in it. Let us pray for the people affected by the flooding, forest fires, and drought. Help us relieve the anxieties of the evacuees from their homes. We pray for those Canadians who are suffering massive losses in horrendous fires. We pray for the millions of people throughout Canada and the Americas for the horrific smoke conditions. We pray for the people in respiratory distress. We pray for the safety of the firefighters throughout the world who are battling these blazes. We pray for their safety and their safe return to their families. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
These proceedings are being recorded for the sole purpose of preparing accurate written minutes. Recordings are overwritten. Following approval of the minutes, eliminating all unofficial records of these proceedings. The first item is the approval of the minutes for the previous meeting held June 1st, 2023.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes, are there any guests concerning county business at this time? Mr. Lukasevich?
Commissioner Notstein, I'd like to apologize to my remark to you last week, because I know you're a good man, you're a good commissioner, and I respect all that you do for the fire companies. So I want you to accept my apology for the remark I made to you last week.
I do accept and I understand how you feel, so I really appreciate you standing up today and apologizing. If I ever offended you, I apologize as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other guests?
Hi, I'm Jean Pepe. I'm the Register of Wills, Clerk of Orphans Court. Here today. Good news and bad news. My beautiful first deputy is retiring tomorrow. And I just wanted to come here to say, in public, thank you, Barb Miller. You have, just wanted to give a little background. When I got elected, if it was not for Barb Miller and Kathy, I would not have been successful. She, we came in like a wrecking ball, and poor Barb sat there and she did the work solely, paperwork processing, while I was in there making changes on a daily basis. She not only kept the office running, she also, at the same time, adjusted to all the changes we were making. So I can guarantee you the first 6 months, I'm thinking Barb went home every day saying, I do not like this girl. But Barb is an outstanding employee. She's going to be so missed by the county. She is an amazing woman, a friend, co-worker. I'm in denial. My husband said to me even last night, he goes, you still don't think she's leaving? I'm like, no, she's not. So Barb, thank you. And not only did you make our office successful, you were compassionate with all the constituents, the attorneys, and you've also trained our first deputy who's taking over to be able to step in on day one and take over and be successful. So thank you for everything, Barb.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Pepe, and congratulations, Barbara. Tomorrow is your last day, correct?
That's correct, yes.
After how many years? 13 years?
13, going on 14, yeah.
Okay, congratulations,
Thank
and
you.
we certainly hope you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Barb, and again, let me say, I did communicate with you separately, but I do hope that you're able to get Jay to slow down so you don't have to take this walk
I'm
into
trying.
retirement alone,
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll be retiring soon as
He's
well.
going to be retiring soon, yes.
Okay. Okay, any other guests? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on.
Okay, our next item is the opening of bids for a CDBG project, Lansford Borough, street improvements, Brimble wall replacement, and street reconstruct as necessary for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. We have one bid, and that bid is from Heim Construction Company of Orwigsburg, Pennsylvania. The total amount bid, $398,105.07.
And there is a bond for 10% of bid.
So I'll move to table this for no more than 2 weeks to allow it to be assessed, this loan bid, to ensure it's technically acceptable.
I'll second that.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Next item is the report of executive sessions held.
There were 2 executive sessions held, one on Friday, June 2nd, at 9 a.m. for personnel reasons, one on Tuesday, June 6th, 9:30 a.m. for personnel reasons.
Next item is the department reports, the budget transfers.
Motion approved. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Supplemental appropriations.
Motion approved. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Expenditures. Approval of payroll check numbers is 75061 through 75090, and direct deposit check numbers is 6053778 through 6054214 for the payroll paid through the payroll fund checking account for all county funds totaling $655,627.82. This is the payroll dated June 2nd, 2023.
Motion to ratify. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Approval of check numbers 236729 through 236799 for expenditures to the general fund clearing account totaling $450,088.43.
Move to approve. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
The treasurer's report?
Move to accept. Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes. At this time, we'll recess the commissioners' meeting, and I'll now call the recessed meeting of the salary board to order. Are there any guests concerning salary board issues at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on.
The report of executive sessions held.
There was one executive session held on June 6, 2023 at 2:30 p.m.
Next item, register of wills. Mrs. Pepe?
I'd like to make a motion to change the rate of one first deputy from $19.45 per hour, grade S5, step A, to $20.42 per hour, grade S6, step A, effective June 12th, 2023.
I will second that with a little discussion on this. Barb, it's a loss, but I wish you lots of luck. You're gonna love it. And I just wanna give a little bit of a history again of this salary study. And it's a shame that you couldn't hang around for this raise. I think if, like everybody was saying to me, like, why didn't we go back to that 3% and everybody would have got it? Well, your job was at, I think, 1834, and you would only got 3% of that. And it's a shame that you can't hang around for this, but the job went from that, through the salary study, it went up through, got, I think, an additional 99 cents through that. And then Gene came in and went through the proper channels to review the study, and the job wound up increasing $2.08. And I wish you lots of luck, and I wish you would have been here, but I wish you more luck at home, because you're gonna love it. But like I said, maybe you have to get Jay a part-time job so he's doing fight during the day.
No, and Hannah is, you're worth every penny. that pay raise.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's why I
You've done
said,
an exceptional job.
yeah, and I think it's important to review these jobs, and that's where people are gonna get the proper pay, when these job studies are all done, and I just can't get that across to everybody. And this is the midway point of $20, and it was sort of labeled like we're only helping the people at 13, but it helps all the way through the salary study. So, and again, thank you for your service that you have done for us.
Ms. Miller, if we take this action, or before we take this action, will you reconsider your retirement? What is not the issue, okay? I just wanted to make sure.
Now you sound like Gene.
Okay, may I pull the board? Mrs. Pepe,
Yes.
Mr. Severcek,
Yes.
Mr. Honor,
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich.
Yes.
Mr. Notstein.
Yes,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to change the rate of 1 second deputy from $15.05 per hour, grade 4, step A, to $15.80 per hour, grade 5, step A, effective June 12th, 2023.
I will second that.
Mrs. Pepe,
Yes.
Mr. Severcek,
Yes.
Mr. Honor,
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich.
Yes.
Mr. Notstein.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, change the rate of one fiscal legal assistant from $18.75 per hour, a grade 8, step B, to $18.29 per hour, grade 8, step A, effective June 12th, 2023.
Change the rate.
I'll second that.
Mr. Severcek,
Yes.
Mr. Honor,
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich.
Yes.
Mr. Notstein.
yes,
Information technology, change the rate of one director from $28.05 per hour, a grade S12, step B, to $27.37 per hour, grade S12, step A, effective June 12th, 2023.
Move to change the rate.
I'll second that.
Mr. Severcek,
Yes.
Mr. Honor,
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich.
Yes.
Mr. Notstein.
yes, with regrets, taking applications for this position, there were certainly, the requests were 70,000 or 80,000 and more for this position. And I think in trying to increase some of our lower salaries, trying to be more competitive by the outside, I did talk to Caleb, he is willing to accept this, but I think we have to try to be more competitive because the turnover on departments is really horrendous within the last 6-8 months, so I'll vote yes.
And I just wanna make a little bit of a comment about that also. I mean, I was for Caleb all along. I think we have to promote within, our young people are our future. And I also talked to Caleb about this too, and when he comes in here, he has different ideas that everybody else had. And even like his counterpart there, they're gonna bring a lot of things to the county. And there's no reason within a year, that they can go through the same thing and do a salary, adjustment, on what they do, and I think that is warranted for them. But I just wanna go back on this thing on how the taxpayers can save. From the job that we had originally, back when the original director was here. Now we had one and then he quit, but the original salary was $35.91. Now this is going to $27.37. That's a savings of $17,763. With the move that we made in the county here, it's $8,954.40. That's a total saving of $26,717.60. And that's how we can have money for this additional salaries, through attrition. And that's how we have to do it, This just raising taxes all the time, just for raising taxes is not good enough reason. Now, when Caleb goes through this or whoever comes in here, and I said, it looks a little bit different both ways. That person's leaving and a new one's coming in and it looks like we don't appreciate that person. But that's a little bit of a different situation. And with Caleb here, I would say we're probably gonna be back within a year reevaluating him. And I'm sure it's gonna be a pretty big jump because, he's been working here, I get letters all the time, and he was sort of thrown into the mix of this, and so was Brandon. And I got some emails that they were tremendous down there at the Children and Youth hooking things up. tying into the courthouse for the cameras, the whole 9 yards. So I have to actually commend both of them. And that's another thing, the children and youth people really did a good job. Everything moved very quickly in one day. There was no chaos. So now, I guess today their chaos is gonna start on the new cases, so at least they're at a good place. But that's what I wanted to make about, with Caleb. He has a bright future here for us, and I think we have to acknowledge that. And even some of these people that come in, and I don't think it's the dollar amount that they have, but they're making $100,000 and they're coming to our county for the advertised as 60, or whatever it is. And I just don't feel comfortable with somebody from the outside like that. Now, other positions might, but these guys know our system. They know how 911 works, and I'd rather send them to training to upgrade our systems instead of having somebody come in to be trained by them how our system works. That's what that is. And I think, like I said, I just see a bright future for the IT department.
I think beyond, since we're doing discussion after the fact, that's good. I think beyond showing this as a representation of doing our best to hire the best individuals in a fiscally responsible manner, I think it also epitomizes the opportunity that public service can provide for individuals seeking employment. If you look at, Caleb as an example, that epitome I speak about, in less than 2 years, he went from an IT specialist at $14.53 an hour to an IT director at $27.37 an hour, right? Between a 90 to 100% salary increase. Obviously, he's taken advantage of a great opportunity that's presented to him, but those types of opportunities do present themselves in public service. You just have to be in public service to take advantage of them. So that's my pitch for recruiting for Carbon County government.
Okay.
Leopold Moore,
Oh, I'm sorry.
What we did.
Yeah.
Mr. Severcek.
Yes.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes, we will recess the meeting again because of some upcoming positions that need to be addressed in a timely fashion. So we'll recess until next Thursday, the 15th, during the commissioners' meeting. Okay, good. Why don't you give us that look?
I thought Bob wanted something else. No, Bob, we're not raising your salary.
We're just wondering if we voted twice on this, but we affirmed it.
I just threw a mix in there.
Yeah.
I had discussion
You're
after the
halfway
fact.
through or something, yeah.
Did you
Okay.
call for the vote before?
Yeah, and then Commissioner
Yeah.
Notstein made comments.
Yeah.
No, that's.
That's okay.
You know, you do this to me every.
Did he actually vote maybe? Maybe he didn't vote. He might not have
I don't want to
voted.
change their vote.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, we are recessed anyway. Now, we'll reconvene our commissioners' meeting.
Okay, the next item is the personnel report for county departments.
Move to approve.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
The acknowledgements for courts and row offices.
Move to acknowledge.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
There was one item received under correspondence. Copies will be made available to the press upon request. Advertising. Authorize the advertisement of a public notice regarding the Carbon County Agricultural Land Preservation Board meeting dates for 2023, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Area Agency on Aging. A request was received from the Area Agency on Aging Administrator for continuation of the Carbon County Area Agency on Aging to be the fiscal manager for the LINK program from July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second,
Mr. Honor?
yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
An agreement renewal. Renewal of agreement between the County of Carbon, Carbon County Area Agency on Aging, and Julie Ravinsky Mon of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, to continue in the position of Carbon County Link Coordinator, created by a federal mandate for the term of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, at the rate of $25 per hour, with flexible hours up to but not exceeding 40 hours per week. This contract will renew annually, subject to funding availability.
Move to approve.
And I'll second that with a little bit of discussion. I think this is something that we're gonna have to keep on top of this, and, you know, we've been getting some people calling us about different issues, and I think we gotta meet with this person periodically.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
A bid award for refuse collection. Award the contract for refuse collection and single stream recycling for various county facilities, including the Parking Lot B, Mock Chunk Lake Park Office, Environmental Education Center, the Correctional Facility, Animal Shelter, the Communication Center, and the Children and Youth Services Office, to the lowest bidder, County Waste of Pennsylvania LLC of Lake Ariel, Pennsylvania, at the bid price for 3 years, $118,325.48. The bid was revised after submission to correct a mathematical error in accordance with paragraph 12 of the invitation to bid general instructions, resulting in a net increase of 62 cents.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yeah.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Communications 911 for approval and execution, the interoperability and site sharing agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through the Pennsylvania State Police of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to facilitate the collection of emergency telecommunications equipment amongst Commonwealth and county-owned or maintained radio towers and facilities. Agreement is for 20 years and automatically renews for successive one-year terms. All costs for equipment relocation are covered under Act 12. This is no cost to the county.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
A PIMA audit for approval and execution. The representation letter with Mayor Russell, Certified Public Accountants of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which were contracted by the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency to audit the financial statements of Carbon County 911 for the years 2021 and 2022.
Move to approve and execute.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Information Technologies for ratification. Acceptance of a quote received from Integra One of Allentown, Pennsylvania for 3 additional wireless access points for children and youth at the 525 Iron Street, including installation and configuration. The cost is $3,630.72, which includes a 3-year subscription. This is under CoStar's contracts, hardware 003-E22-580, and software 006-E23252.
Move to ratify.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Open Space Advisory Board for approval. Authorize the Wildlands Conservancy, Natural Lands, Audubon, Mid-Atlantic, and Mr. Dan Kunkel to provide technical advice and assistance to the Open Space Advisory Board.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes. We have Mr. Kunkel with us today along with Dennis DeMera, who were very instrumental in seeing this referendum passed. Anything you'd like to say at this time, Mr. Kunkel? Or Dennis?
We both probably have something to say. I would just like to say that the Carbon County did something here and the voters approved it, but you three putting this referendum on the ballot was the most forward-thinking thing that I can imagine a county commission doing. A lot of other counties have done this after they're so crowded and the traffic congestion is so bad, and they do it when it's almost too late. You three did it when it really has a chance to really count. So I want to thank you for your forward-thinking action.
I want to thank the commissioners for adding Dan Kunkel to the list of advisors to the Open Space Board. I think as you all know, Dan has been a leader in conservation and has taken one of Carbon County's greatest liabilities and turned it into its greatest asset with the restoration of the Blue Mountain. And Dan was retired for 1 week when I called him up and said, Dan, I think you'd be the best guy to chair the public campaign committee for this bond referendum. And him and his wife agreed, and it's just been a great honor to work with him. I also want to thank the commissioners for last week's decision to establish the Open Space Advisory Board. Maybe those not in conservation and recreation don't understand the importance of what you did last week. I've been involved with the county for 47 years and never thought something like this was possible. So for Carbon County as a sixth-class county with 64,000 residents and seeing the development pressure, seeing the need to protect water, farms, and land, we really appreciate what you've done, and it's a very monumental action. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis, and for you, both Dennis and Dan, there is no such thing as retirement. You are the type of people that, there's many others, but the type of people that keep things going and make the change in lives and the county in general with what you do for the environment, and other people do it in other areas. But thank you so much for that and your continued work, unpaid work, for what you do.
Glad to serve.
You're welcome.
Okay, move on. Planning and Development. For ratification, amendment number 1 to the CDBG CV fiscal year 2020 contract number 75512, changing the contract period from January 27th, 2020 to expire May 31, 2023.
Move to ratify.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Amendment number 2 to the CDBG CV fiscal year 2020 contract 75512, changing the contract period from January 27th, 2020 to September 29th, 2023.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
The Solicitor's Report?
Thank you. At the train station, seeking a motion for approval and execution of a banner request that was received from Carbon Model Railroad Society of Bowmanstown for upcoming events and displaying their website. The banner to be displayed June 23rd, 2023 until July 10th, 2023.
Move to approve and execute.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Under the Emergency Operations and Training Center, seeking a motion for approval of correction to the minutes previously approved on March 16, 2023, item 23-121, reflecting the prior approval of change order number 5 to the contract with the Cobalt Construction Incorporated of Tobyhanna, Pennsylvania. That change order also included an extension of the completion date from October 1st, 2022 to April 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Under janitorial services, seeking a motion to authorize the county solicitor to provide a 14-day written notice to terminate the janitorial agreement with Gloria Auto of Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, to perform services at the Carbon County Office of Planning and Development, 410 Center Street, Jim Thorpe. That agreement to be terminated effective June 30th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Any further business?
Yes, I just wanted to give a quick update on the visitors we had last week about Tyler Technologies. As promised, we had a meeting with Tyler Technology yesterday. There were 17 of us from the county side in the meeting, several department heads, and I think it was 6 or 7 title searchers and an attorney whose law firm is specializes in this type of work. Did an excellent job of explaining all the issues to Tyler Technology. They certainly seem more receptive and cooperative than they ever have been with Tyler. They have assured us, and they were given basically a deadline to report to us next week with a timeline with when things will be accomplished. We brought up the upset sale and the amount of properties, 500 properties that have to be researched before they could do the sale in September. Hopefully we'll have this done, because what they have to do is change their programming, and we'll have to run several tests to ensure the program is operating properly. The one person on the call assured us as soon as he got off the phone, he was going to look into the matter and try to move it along as soon as possible. There was still some frustrations, but with the title searchers, and understandably so, that it took so long to get to this point, and I think they had a little trouble understanding that we just can't make a couple of changes and put it out there without making sure it's working right. So we should have some changes in the very near future and get into the testing mode for Tyler Technology. The other thing I forgot under further business this morning was the introduction of our newest department head, Sophia Tulsi. So, welcome, Julia. She started on Monday, so we wish her the best, and we're sure we got the right person for the job.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Any comments?
No, I'm just very grateful and, to be part of our county. I live in the county, and I'm interested in also, putting in my effort to make it better.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have under further business.
Okay, Commissioners' reports, Mr.
Well, you
Honor?
took it easy on her. I was gonna interrogate her what her future of the department looks like,
We want her to come in.
but yeah, we'll let that go. But, I mean, I think I spoke enough, and I think Children and Youth has been in the paper enough. But I think like the big thing of today, Barb came in, and I wish her lots of luck. And that's the type of people that show the new people that come in how the operations work. So the best of luck to her, and best of luck to Hannah moving up to that position. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lukasevich?
First and foremost, all three areas of Mock Chunk Lake Park swimming areas will be open, or planned to be open this weekend, with 4 lifeguards on duty. We also have 4 lifeguards that are kind of contingent or provisional for hiring, just finishing up some administrative matters. We have 2 additional applications that have been received, and then actually a pending submission from a certified lifeguard. So the director of Mock Chunk Lake Park is fairly confident that we could probably have a record number of lifeguards, either 10 or 11, over the next couple weeks. So let's hope that comes to realization, and we can carry at least a handful of them through Labor Day weekend. Want to thank the Prothonotary office for a couple weeks ago joining the 21 other offices and departments here in the county that are offering 2 hours of free parking for citizens and county taxpayers who set up an appointment for private business, personal business with their departments. So that's all I have.
Mr. Notstein?
Yeah, some quick items here. Again, thanks to IT and the tremendous job they did, and it's moved with so many people, about 20-some people with phone systems and computers and everything else. They were extremely busy. And I thank our 2 guys out of the 4. Pardon?
And
And then
Oh, yeah,
maintenance, of
yeah.
course, they did it basically one day. I got the opportunity to stop into the office. Don't visit for a while until they put the boxes away. Because they have, their cubicles are set up at their boxes and filing and everything else they had to do is gonna take a little bit of time. So I'll go back next week, so when it looks a little bit better. The other thing I want to push right now, and I'm gonna get into it later on this year with a program for the municipal elected officials, is the emergency medical services crisis. And I got a call from LTRIC. They are offering a ENT training program. We do have a major shortage of EMTs in the county and throughout the Commonwealth, like everywhere else and everywhere other departments. The classes are, very unfortunately, cost $1,350 to take an EMT classes, which is about 160, 70 hours, I believe, I don't recall offhand. And the classes are available in the evening. We're looking for EMTs, we're looking for paramedics, that of course isn't listed here, but there is some possibility of reimbursement of tuition through the college, and sometimes the ambulance corps themselves are in desperate needs, and they will help finance the training of an EMT with maybe a 2-year commitment of service. We have a large turnover, we have a lot of scratches, turnaround, people are going all the time, and it's like a lot of other jobs, low pay and 24 hours a day, but takes a little while, and I'll give them a better report of that. So if the news media would get that message out there, that we'd appreciate it, and hopefully we can get some more EMTs. The other thing I wanted to bring up, you see we approved a contract today for trash, and it's amazing what we're dealing with now is not only the tourism and the parking, now we're dealing with the trash. The amount of trash, we have some renters or people that already have dumpsters in the parking lot, seeking more additional dumpsters. And every time we put a dumpster in, we lose maybe 2 spaces of parking, but with the huge increase in tourism, trash is becoming an issue. So, talking about other, I don't know where else we can go. Unfortunately, we have to turn down areas to dump trash or place dumpsters because we can't afford to lose any parking spaces either. So, becoming a bigger problem, and talked a little bit about among ourselves and having come up with a decision, but instead of several small dumpsters, and we're gonna have to look at probably a better cost, and we could probably fill a roll-off dumpster in one weekend, the way things are going around here right now, or at least once a week, I would say. So, with the tourism and all the other benefits comes the bad things as well. So, that's all I have. Meeting adjourned. Before we get into our retirement board, does any of the news media want to escape? Oh, are you gonna stick around? You guys good? Okay. With that being said, meeting adjourned. Sarah, would you like to join us up here?
Why you made it sound like you're boring? I think you
Oh,
bring
amazing.
excitement to the board.
One, leaving. Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
We're gonna go,
Well, let's do the rest of the
Mark
first.
no, Mark has to go, I forgot.
Mark,
Sorry.
yeah. Let me call the meeting to order. We'll turn the retirement board meeting over to the county controller. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. And just for the media's benefit and the public, we had a unanimous vote to move the meeting from the 3rd Thursday to the 2nd Thursday to accommodate our board member treasurers Alinka and Mrs. Wilson, who will be at the treasurers conference next week, and I thank you all for that. So first, we'll start with an approval of the minutes of the previous meeting held May 18th, 2023.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Zelinka?
Yes.
Mr. Svercek, yes. Mr. Arner?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Are there any guests concerning county retirement board business? Thank you. Report of executive sessions, there weren't any held. Next, we'll seek a motion to ratify the warrant. And that includes checks number 40920 to 40937 and direct deposit number 7021964 to 7022370 for the month of May.
Motion to ratify.
Second.
Mr. Zelinka?
Yes.
Mr. Svercek, yes. Mr. Arner?
Yes.
Mr. Lukasevich?
Yes.
Mr. Notstein?
Yes.
Thank you. Next would be the retirement activity report for the month of May. We had 10 retirement refunds, 1 superannuation retirement, 1 voluntary retirement. I wanted to recognize Mrs. Bowman for her close to 34 years of service to the county. She retired as our HR director. We had 2 death benefits paid out, and we had 2 deceased members of the retirement community. And we want to always express the condolences on behalf of the retirement board to the Hammond Pompa family, and those ladies served the county a total of 18 years of service. The disbursements for the month of May included the monthly benefits of $475,898.82. The option 4 chosen totaled $161,666.54. Death benefit totaled $565,213.95, and refunds of $29,540.86, for a very large disbursement in the month of May of over $1,232,320.17. And that left our portfolio value as of May 31st of $81,562,734.98. Fortunately, I always like to give the most recent update from the Friday before the meeting. As of June 2nd, we had a nice little bounce up to $83,026,093. So that was a nice recovery there. Any questions on that? Correspondence, I did not receive any. Solicitor's report?
No report.
Thank you. And this month we have Mrs. Wilson from Marquette Associates to review the first quarter with the board. Eric?
Good morning, everybody, and again, thank you so much for changing it to this date. We'll just go quickly over, we're going to go to page 7, which is Exhibit 1. I'll talk a little bit about Marquette. We always like to do an update in your book. Just so you know, we have saved the date for our 2023 Investment Symposium. It is in Friday, September 15th. We do invite all of our clients, and you can attend it online as well. And just quickly to remind you that, we do have the YouTube channel, and we do have some great quarterly research updates if you want to just pop in and get an update on the market. And we're at $337 billion under advisement still, and we're in our 37th year of business, and we've 130 plus employees. Last year we actually hired 40 employees, and we've really put in a lot of additional assets into the Westchester office. So we've hired more performance analysts and research associates there. And in the industry, we always kind of list where we're going to speak. I know next week, Marquette will be speaking at the Treasurers Conference, and then in July, I'll be speaking at the Pennsylvania Controllers Association's conference. So let's turn to the next exhibit, and we're going to talk to page 10. We're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. economy and what has been going on, and this is going to kind of relate to the first quarter there. We look at GDP growth at an annualized rate of return of just 1.1%, while consumer spending picked up compared to the fourth quarter. We look at the quarterly on that top chart. You look year over year, you can see, spiking in 2021, and then we look that we've kind of gone down year over year with real GDP growth. We look at what's been happening with the initial jobless claims and recession. So we go to that bottom graph, and you can always see that when you start hitting that low, the 4-year week moving average, we start to look at that we were possibly coming into a little bit of a recession there. When we talk about a recession, we saw a recession more likely than not coming in the next 12 months. We look at what's been happening with inflation. We look at the market. Right now, the market's kind of stagnant. It's been very lackluster in the second quarter going into June. We had that little bump, as Mark said last week, but we've had a really kind of a blah quarter, and what's going to happen, and we'll start talking about that. And if you look at the banks, and we'll look at the next page, we're going to look at the banks tightening. And when banks start to tighten, we start seeing it a lot harder for the consumer. And we look at what happened with Silicon Valley. Now, does everybody understand what happened there with the banking with them and why they collapsed? I'll briefly go over it because I think it's a very interesting thing when you look at that. So what happened was Silicon Valley Bank went in, and they were a large holder of private equity and private credit
investors, institutional investors. So remember last year when the market was down 13%, fixed income was down about 13%, and we had to, like, when we have to make benefit payments here, we had to look at where we were going to take money from because you were out of asset allocation. So we actually went in and said, we'll redeem some of the real estate, which we did. We changed it to actually pay dividends instead of reinvesting it. Well, other institutional investors said, well, look, we've done really well in private credit. We've done really well in private equity. We'll start taking cash out of there. So then they go to the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and said, we're going to start taking money out. So we start taking money out, and what happened was Silicon Valley Bank went and they leveraged themselves too high. So they went out and they bought treasuries at an all low. We know that, rates have just started to rise. So why would you buy a treasury, selling it at 2% when you can buy one at 3%? So they started selling everything off as a loss, and they also had crypto, which you could, come back and say this is a little bit of mismanagement. So it was that's what started to happen. Then Sovereign Bank did that as well. They had $46 billion leave the bank within like 4 hours. So they came in. And then we look at First Republic. First Republic was the next bank to fall, and that was very interesting. That had a little bit of a different dynamic. First Republic was actually a large part of their business was very wealthy investors. So as we know, wealthy investors don't usually keep all their money in one place. So they're like, no, I'm going to move it to my next bank. So that's what's happened. So in the end, the FDIC came in, they took over that. We know that some of these banks got bought, and they're going to go and say, all right, we're now going to go look at all the little banks. We're going to go look at the consumers. We're going to look at what lending is going to look like in the next 2 to 3 years. You've got interest rates rising. You're going to have lending becoming more and more difficult. And that's going to start affecting commercial real estate. And we'll look at where real estate's going. Long term, it's been great for you. You're institutional there, and your manager, JP Morgan's done very well. But what's going to happen with commercial real estate is it's going to be harder for them to get loans. It's going to be more expensive. We know that when commercial real estate kind of stalls a little bit, then you're going to start seeing that affect the economy as well, because commercial real estate is like building, apartment buildings or building, industry. So if they can't do that, then we'll start seeing not as many job openings and everything else. So it is going to have an effect. It's going to have an effect too when we look at the consumer. You want to go out and get a mortgage, and we talk about that. And I kind of always go back to 2020. Is that when we look at 2020, we said the American consumer actually had savings. 2 years now, credit cards can now charge you close to 29.3%. They're allowed to do it. Remember when it was 20, 21? So now you've got that. You've got the new buyer coming in. Interest rates are up. Inflation, food was up 10% last year. I'm sure everybody's feeling that. Gas has gone down. Crude's about 72, but I was just at the pump. It's like $4. So, you've got the summer fuel prices. So you're going to start seeing the real estate with mortgages and everybody, the consumer who went and refinanced when money was so cheap, added in addition to the house, bought the boat, bought the third car. So we're really going to start seeing an economy that's probably going to really struggle, and that hence the lackluster and where we see the market and the returns, because the market year to date is really only up 4%. It hasn't moved in the second quarter through June. It's at 0.20%. So we're just going to kind of see this. We're not going to see a big jump, and we're probably going to see growth start slowing down there. Fed has come out and said we're going to probably 76% of the market believes that the Fed is not going to raise rates in June. They've got a couple more meetings that they can raise rates. When you look at the bottom of that page there on 11, you can see where the future market's saying. They're saying, look, we believe, and this was at the end of first quarter. So when you kind of look at some of this data, it explains your performance for the first quarter. They believe market's now pricing in 2 to 3 rate cuts before the end of the year. Problem is inflation. Inflation, the Fed has it targeted at 2%. We're not going to get there. So the Fed's going to look more now at jobless claims. We know they've gone up a little bit in May. So we're thinking that the Fed's going to hold steady in June and then possibly raise it again in July, and then maybe towards the end of the year, if they see that this is really working, then they'll start lowering it. If you turn the page to page 12, we look at the global economy, and we've really seen the same thing globally. You look at that when we look at your global and your international managers. We look at China, and we look at China's economic expansion at the bottom. You can see that they've actually, obviously they dropped in March 2019. They started to go back, and then you've seen that they have dropped twice. And we know that last year, China really struggled because they did another shutdown with COVID. They're starting to come back off. And we look at the PMI soared to 58.2 in March from 56.3 in February, marking the best level since 2011. So, and we know that China is a huge, when manufacturing, look at all the goods coming in from China and everything that's made. So China does really affect the economy when we look at that. We look below at the asset classes, and we look at where U.S. equities, I still think for a year, this is a trailing 12 months, March to March. We're down 8.6. They had a nice bump for the first quarter, 7.2. They basically have done nothing. In May, they were... April they were down, and in May they were flat. We look at emerging markets. U.S. bonds actually are showing positive return for the first time in quarters, high yield. And then we look at U.S. REITs. For the 1 year, they were down 19.4 and they were up 1.7.
I'm sorry, Sarah, slide, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, page 13.
Yeah, just,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize.
no.
There we go. And we saw fixed income markets also saw another strong quarter in the first quarter. After rising to begin the year, intermediate and long-term treasury yields ended the quarter at 30 to 40 basis lower thanks to a dramatic decline in the last few weeks of March due to the bank failures. Let's turn the page so it's slide 14. There we are. We look at the sectors on what's been happening with the sectors. We know that from a style perspective, growth stocks topped value stocks in the first quarter. Value suffered from the underperformance of energy and financials. And we also know that when you see kind of the rising market, usually growth stocks will do better. Value stocks did better last year because we know the markets are down. Investors tend to go towards value stocks for safety. You have a little tilt towards value that has done well for you. And I think what's really interesting is the two things is we talk about the presidential cycle and the equity returns. This isn't taking a side Democrat or Republican. It just looks at what's happened historically there. So in addition to economic data, we look at what's happened since 1900. More than half of the return of the S&P 500 index has been generated from October in the year 2 of a president's term through July 3rd in the year 3 in the current term. This period began in October 2022 when the market bottomed before the beginning of its current rally. If you look at historically, we're in year 3, so that means that it's basically has done that rally and will possibly be flat. Next year, we always say the presidential election year usually up. This has got a little bit more of the dynamics, especially where the Fed is, where we've been looking at recession. And we look at what's happened internationally, and we look at what's happened in the international markets with them, cutting rates and then raising rates. Europe's now on this trend to raise rates. I think what's more interesting is when you look at page 15, and that's slide 15, you look there. According to the Crescat Capital, the top 15 stocks in the S&P 500 index saw their cumulative market capitalization increase by 1.8 trillion in the first quarter compared to the decline of 21 billion for the remaining 485 stocks. We're going to go right back to COVID. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago in 2020, do you remember what happened? 5 stocks moved the market down. 5 stocks moved the market back up. And so you're really not seeing growth or decline. You're seeing decline by the 485 stocks, but you're seeing those 1,500. So it's a very condensed group of stocks that are moving this market up and down. And with that, that will have some effect on performance when we look at that. So the top 15 largest stocks, it's great to own them on the up, but then when they go down, that's why you want to be very well diversified, which your plan is there. Is also evidence, the outperformance of the largest stocks is also evident in the relative performance of the S&P 500 index versus the S&P 500 equal weighted index. The former outperformed its equal weighted counterpart by more than 450 basis points there. So we've actually seen, depending on those stocks, so the rest of the companies in the S&P 500, we looked at earnings. Usually earnings last year, we thought were going to kind of carry off this year, and they did for the first quarter. You had a positive first quarter, and now we're kind of sitting on the bench looking at what's going to happen for the trailing next 6 months. Are there any questions on the market? All right, so we are going to go to Exhibit 3 on the book, and we are going to go to slide 22 there. And we're going to talk about observations. We're going to look at March 31st. You were at 83.6 million. At the end of May, you were flat at 81 million, but you also took out a couple $1 million. So you're still in positive territory. For the first quarter, the portfolio returned 4.5% with an investment gain of 3.7%. And I like to kind of go back to this. Over the trailing 3 years, which included 2020 with all COVID, last year double digits returns for down negative for fixed income and the equity markets, you still, as a board, because I think you've done very well in your diversification, you had an annualized return of 11.4% with an investment gain of 26 million. So all that diversification we've done in the last couple of years that you've done as a board, excuse me, has really paid off. You've had outperformance by your active managers, GWK, Dodge & Cox, and MFS, and Schroders will do that. Outperformance by your real estate manager, JP Morgan, fixed income manager, Lord Abbett, and international equity manager, Artisan. You've had low investment manager fees. We've taken those down to 35 basis points. And we're going to talk a little bit about the managers. We did make some changes. Looking ahead, I'd like to do a defensive equity education. It's about a 5% asset allocation to that. I think it's very good in a market that's kind of flat and goes down. It's what we do is it's a defensive equity piece that takes a little bit from fixed income, a little bit from equity. It's a mutual fund. We'll do some education because it does tie into options on how they do it. You don't own the options or fully covered, but it is a nice play to kind of put in there for long term. So I would like to do an education next quarter. We can come out and do it as, I don't know if we want to do it at this meeting or we want to do a meeting before we do this meeting as an educational. So if you'd like to think about that, we can discuss that at the end of the meeting. And then we'll do an asset allocation review. One of the things I think is you're taking an enormous amount of cash out. And if we go to 24, slide 24, look at how much your net cash flow has changed. So we've been here since 4/1/2018 as a consultant. We took over in 2020 as OCIO. You hit your high point on 12/31/21 at 98.9 million. And, obviously it's gone down, the market's gone down, but then look at how much your net cash flow has gone down. So I think we should talk a little bit about your cash. We generate cash every month, and, we can do that. You tell us what you need, we can do it. I think now when looking at how much cash is coming out that we may want to talk a little bit about your asset allocation towards fixed income, maybe move your cash up there due to where the markets are, maybe put a little bit more in, keep 3/4 of cash going out. So we're not always selling every month, and I think that it never used to be kind of an issue, but now, and you did have that huge cash withdrawal last month, but I think that it may be worth talking a little bit more.
Well, how is the huge turnover in longer-term employees? And I see several other long-term employees looking into the retirement or payouts.
Right.
How is that gonna affect their achievement?
Well, you're well funded, but knowing that those are coming up, unless you have specific dates on when they're going to be leaving or the turnover, it doesn't really affect the portfolio. What it does affect is that if we know that they're coming up in the next year or in the next 3 to 6 months, I think it does have an effect on having to sell. You have seen higher benefit payments go out. And so that is one of the things I've noticed, and that is why I'm suggesting that maybe we keep a little bit more cash on hand for the next year. We don't see this market going to be double-digit up returns. So, selling every month in one way is good because you stay invested. You always want to be exposed to the market, but when you're selling on a down market, it does have an effect on performance.
And I think with any pension fund, it'll be awful difficult to try to forecast
Right.
the potential retirees coming up in any given time period, monthly, quarterly, even in the coming
Right.
year.
Yeah.
There's just no real good way to know that.
And I think with ours, like this year, we had a lot of people that had 30 years.
Right.
And that's why the payments got a little bit bigger.
Yes.
Hopefully, these young people stay around for another 20 years so we don't have to pay them pensions next year, right? But
Right.
I think that's what happened there. Like, that's where we got hit. And I think like 4 years ago, we got hit with a lot of people like that too.
But if
Right.
we look at the age of a lot of our employees, it should give us some indication of who might be going in the next several years if they're reaching that 60 or over. And people under 60 are bailing out right now. So I think looking at the age group of a lot of the people.
I mean, we could ask the actuary,
Yeah,
see if they could do some
absolutely.
type of report for us, forecast that.
And that would be good. And I'm not talking about putting 3 years of payments in cash. I'm just saying is that let's maybe put a couple more months into cash and look at that asset allocation. We'll do that education on defensive equity. And if we make the change there, we'll make a little bit of a change on the asset allocation. Maybe move your cash up to 2%, 2.5%. Just because we know this is coming out and we don't mind doing it. I just think that right now when looking at where the market is, and also we are getting a little bit better on the money market. Remember, money markets were paying like 0 a couple of years ago. Now that we're getting a little bit more on the money market, it's not gonna hurt to move it over into cash. We could do that at the next meeting. We'll prepare for that. All right, I'm gonna talk a little bit, and we're going to turn all the way to slide page 40. And we're gonna look at your managers and how they did for the quarter. There, so on page 40, we look at where you are. Your equity managers, which was real nice, I said GWK did very well at 4% versus 3.4%. They've done very well since we put them in May 2020 when you went OCIO. They've actually averaged 12.3% annualized a year. Vanguard Small Cap Value has had a nice return. It's annualized since inception, 18.2. It just did 0.6 for the quarter because we saw that small cap value was really kind of did not do very much. I mean, they were right on the benchmark. Then we go look at your global equity composite. Dodge and Cox did 5.1 versus 1.2. They definitely protected you in the down market for 1 year. You can see them. This is under the global equity composite. They were negative 3.2 versus 5.5. And they were, for 3 years, 22 versus 15. They're your alpha, and we put them in May 20th, 17.7 versus 11.9. Artisan, you can sit there and say that it's done 9.1 versus 13.8. We actually look at them as one of your growth because they are a global opportunities fund. When they actually benchmark themselves, they actually benchmark themselves to the MSCI ACWI, which is at 7.3. So when the manager's looking at, we benchmark them a little bit differently because they're playing a different part on the growth. But we're very comfortable with them. We actually reached out and had a call with the manager in April, and they actually, unfortunately, did have some Silicon Valley Bank exposure to that. They immediately sold it at a significant loss. But they have done well from its lack of exposure to the energy sector, which was actually the worst performing sector of this quarter. We're very comfortable with their team. They've looked, the portfolio's provided positive returns, and they've actually had a nice security selection in healthcare and information technology sectors, which have done well. So we're comfortable with them. So when we go to the non-US equity composite, and this is one of the things before, some of you remember on the board, before you were OCIO, and this is on page 41 tab, we look at Wellington. So before you had that, if you wanted to fire a manager, we would have to come and tell you to fire a manager. We would then have to give you 3 choices for a manager. Then you would have to interview 3 choices of the manager, and 6 months later, you would still be with that manager and you'd make your decision. Well, yesterday, as driving out here, we were on our OCIO committee, which meets every week. We looked at Wellington and we said, get them out. So we have fired them. They are immediately coming out of this portfolio. We were unhappy with their performance. They got put in. Now, it was, you actually put them in January 2022. When we put a manager in for your time frame, they have really underperformed the market. When we look at them 3, 5, 7, 10 years, they've done very well. The problem is they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing in this particular, in the non-US equity composite. So we immediately are putting you into an index fund. We will find the right manager that will fit there for that. And that is one of the benefits of OCIO. We looked at it and we said, absolutely not, they need to go. And they were actually 36 out of 38 of our Westchester clients. So all the counties did have some exposure to this. We didn't let it go long. They still did 3.3% year to date. It's not bad. And they only underperformed by 7%, 70 basis points. But when we looked at their how they've been doing in 1 year, they're not doing what we want them to do. They're not protecting you in the down market. To have an active manager, you want them for us to outperform in a down market. In the up market, they do 5%, the up market does 6%. We're fine with that. But in the down market, we want them to protect you because this is the way it is. So we terminated them yesterday. You'll see an index fund in there, and then we will go do a search and figure out who we'd like to put in there. Are there any questions about that? All right. We look at real estate. Real estate, that was, when you look at what you did in the diversification on real estate, really made sense. It's page 41 at the bottom. The real Morgan Stanley has done extremely well. In 3 years, they've averaged 8.6% versus 7.5%. And they have done inception 7.7 versus 6.5. And for the quarter, they're only down 1.2 versus 3.3. Now, real estate is going to see some negative returns for the next few quarters. We know it. It's just the way it is. JP Morgan did very well for you, especially during COVID. Prior to COVID, they had a huge exposure to retail. They had exposure to apartments. They kind of changed that around, obviously, with retail because of COVID. And they went in and they decided to do a lot more of storage. They do green space. They do, like the Amazon, the big warehouses. Those are the things. They really changed the dynamic of what they were doing, and it's really benefited this fund. Right now, we are actually not doing reinvestment in the fund. We are taking some of those nice dividends that will help pay the cash every month going out, and we are actually, as a firm, kind of holding back off on real estate for the next 2-3 quarters, just letting it follow out, putting any additional money into it. And it's a long-term play. Remember, we took 50% out of equities, 50% out of fixed income. when we decided to fund real estate, meaning that we would happy with it doing 5 to 7% over the next 10 years, and that's what it's done. It's the average 7.7 in the last 5. Infrastructure, you put that in January 2022. We did the IMF Global Infrastructure on January 23rd, and that's been positive 2.6% versus 2.4. If we turn the page, we go to page 42, slide 42 on there, and we look at U.S. fixed income, and we look year-to-date, U.S. fixed income's done 2.8%. So it is in positive territory. CS McKee's done a nice job for you. They're a little bit down. We don't have an issue with that. It's only 0.30% for the quarter. They've done well for you since, but I think this is what's amazing. Go look at the end under inception, July 2009. They have averaged 2.2% annualized a year. So fixed income really has been, that used to be 50, 60% of portfolios. We have taken them all the way down to 20% because fixed income is just not there on returns to meet your actuarial assumption. If you didn't need to meet that, then you could be higher up in fixed income. But the diversification this board's made has done very well. We look at Lord Abbett High Yield. We still have kept about 0.30% into high yield. We put them in May 2020. There was we saw some nice returns from them. They've averaged 3.2% versus 3.1%. They lagged a little bit this quarter. We're keeping high yield in there. We may go back into high yield. It's kind of a play depending on where the fixed income markets are. Baird, which is the Core Plus Bond Fund, which we changed in May 2022, has done nice with 3%. And we also in 2020 put in the Fidelity US Bond Index, which for the year to date has done 3.1%. Are there any questions about the managers?
Sarah, just a quick question on the fixed income side with short-term rates being higher. I'm not sure what CS McKee's position was. Like I know 6-month treasuries were over 4%. If they're doing any of that in our portfolio with some of the fixed income monies, putting it into the short-term treasuries or a treasury fund or something.
They have a capability of doing a little bit of that, but they're intermediate, meaning they're kind of like a 5 to 7 year. When looking at their benchmark and how they're building that, what happened was managers for everything, and they've done very well for you. It's hard to say be short. Now, CS McKee was fairly short on some of their holdings, and that's done well for you. But all those managers that were short for the last couple of years saying we know interest rates are going to raise, until they started raising, they really were not doing well at all. So it's kind of almost like a big bet. And so everybody did very, very poorly. So they went out maybe 2 to 4 years. So they're still holding it. They're a little bit shorter. But to go do that play on like a 6-month or a 1 year, it's maybe they have a little bit to do that. But we would not want to see a manager doing that with a large portion of the portfolio, just because at that point it's going to be market timing.
Right. We want to avoid market timing.
We want to avoid market timing. I think it's kind of interesting to point out, though, when we look at the yield on returns year to date, you're getting 1%. For the trailing 1 year on your cash, you're getting 2.3% on your money market. It's still not reflecting. Money markets have actually taken a little bit of time to kind of catch up with these rates, and I think banks have been kind of fairly stingy on that. And when you go look at buying CDs as an individual going out and maybe buying a CD, you look at that, you're getting some nice rates, but then they're holding up for 22 months to 36 months. So they're willing to give you a little bit of this, but they want you to keep that money in there. And then to get some of those rates, I don't know if anybody knows, it's got to be new money. It can't be money that you've already had with the bank for 10 years in relationship. You've got to go find the money somewhere else. So we've kind of seen the banking industry really kind of change. And they are really, I think we're going to see a couple more banks kind of either merge or get out of the business in the next 12 to 18 months because they were happy to loan everybody money. And that is going to come back when people can't make those payments.
Any other questions for Sarah? Just a quick comment back to that retirement activity report. When you look at that, those 2 death benefits of over $500,000, that more than almost doubled our average monthly payout. So that really skewed the numbers for the month of May. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Anything under new business? Anything under old business? Anything under further business? That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Amy,
Hi. Still morning. Good morning,
morning.
Now that Children Youth is moved, right, do you have any plans of bringing planning and development back up to 76?
No, they're going to 44. Yeah, and that's why where we terminated that word, it was like an add-on, that she was doing extra work for us, and now we don't need her at the building that we're renting right now.
So when is that move going to take place for planning?
Monday. So somebody better call them.
no, not really, not
No,
the planning.
because, planning.
Public defender.
Oh, yeah, the public
PD,
defenders
they're
moving
first.
Monday.
Okay, so the public defender is currently located in
In
44.
In 44.
Where planning was supposed to be originally.
Okay, and then they're moving to
76.
76, and then if he's properly moved by Wednesday, that's probably gonna be the start of planning to be moved.
Okay.
Because we wanna sort of get that due, because I think the following week is when their planning meeting isn't that, that following Wednesday? And we don't wanna have paperwork up there and half hearing, I mean, it'll be good to have them moved by the following week then.
So IT and maintenance have been extremely busy with moving.
And then, Commissioner Notstein, you said about the EMT training program. Do you have any information from the trustee
Yes,
on that?
I do have a flyer for that.
Okay, may I have a copy of that, please?
Certainly can.
Thank you.
You can have that, I have another one.
Okay, that's all I have.
That might
Thank
be
you.
right there.
Nothing else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Copy of that, and then the bid that you did today, in Lansford, where's that at?
The what?
The bid that you opened today, the
AG was it Brimble Wall?
wall?
Yeah. I'd reach out to David Bodnar in the planning office, him or Jason up there.
Okay, alright.
Okay, that it? Okay, Amy, can I have that back and make a copy? By the way, she's taking care of it. That's why we have her here.